Hello students, in this lecture we'll be discussing a very important topic, that is 1992 Rio Earth Summit. First, let us look at it what happened in this meeting in a brief manner. Agenda 21 was given, and this Agenda 21 dealt with how we'll be moving ahead in the 21st century. And out of this Agenda 21, a very important document, that is United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification, was given out. Then we have forest principles, how forests will be managed in upcoming years so that their degradation and destruction can be reduced and they can be properly regenerated. Then we have Rio Declaration on Earth and Development. So what was happening is that development versus environment debate was going on. So how to move ahead with environment and development, this was given in this declaration. Then we have Commission on Sustainable Development. So commission was formed after this summit to look after sustainable development. Then we have a Rio Plus 10 in 2002. So a meeting took place after this meeting 10 years after in Johannesburg in 2002, and similarly Rio Plus 20 in 2012. So a meeting again took place 20 years after this summit in 2012 in Rio de Janeiro. So this happened in Johannesburg and this happened in Rio de Janeiro. And at last we'll be looking at the Global Environment Facility, what it is, what it does. All right. So let us start. So first let us start with the Rio Earth Summit. This is also known as, its formal name is United Nations Conference on Environment and Development, that is UNCED Earth Summit. This is its formal name. All right. And out of this, from this summit, there were important things that you should know, that it resulted in 3 documents and 2 conventions. This is very important. And the 3 documents are Agenda 21, that what should be the agenda for 21st century. Then we have forest principles, how forests will be managed. And at last, we will have Rio Declaration on Environment and Development, that how you can balance environment and development. And again, very important 2 conventions are, first is on biological diversity, UN Convention on Biological Diversity, and a very important one, this one is United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. This is also known as UNFCCC. So you should know this. Okay. In this lecture, we'll be seeing this area, the 3 documents that I am highlighting here. These 2 conventions we'll be seeing in the upcoming lectures. Okay, so we shall discuss these conventions separately. First, let us focus on these 3 documents. All right. So the first is Agenda 21. This talks about the agenda for 21st century, how to save environment in the 21st century, and hence it is known as Agenda 21, the name Agenda 21. This is a voluntary action plan. So please remember this, that it is not binding. It is voluntary. It is not binding on any party. Okay, it has 350 pages. Not as much important, but you should know this, that this is voluntary. From Agenda 21, United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification, that is UNCCD, was derived. Okay, and this is very important. This will be seeing. Okay, now let us see about this UNCCD. Surprisingly, even though the Agenda 21 is a voluntary document and it is not binding, but UNCCD is a binding convention. You should know this, that UNCCD itself is a binding convention on desertification and it is derived from Agenda 21. But Agenda 21 itself is voluntary in nature. It was adopted in 1994 and enforced in 1996. Okay, it is based on the principles of partnership, participation and decentralization. It is funded by Global Environment Facility. Now, what is this Global Environment Facility? That we will talk about in the end of the lecture. But for now, you should know that it is funded by Global Environment Facility. Along with UNCCD, other conventions are also funded by GEF. We'll be seeing it towards the end of the lecture. All right. It divides the world in 5 regions, not as much important for us: Asia, Africa, Latin America and Caribbean, North Mediterranean, and Central and Eastern Europe. All right. So it is not as such important for us, but you should know that it is funded by GEF and it is a binding convention. These 2 are the important areas here, and it is derived from Agenda 21, which itself is voluntary in nature. All right. Now, this is important. One of the important meetings which took place under this convention was 2017 summit in China. Okay, Ordos city. Here, Land Degradation Neutrality Fund was created. This fund was created. And a strategic framework was launched for 2018 to 2030 for restoration of deserted land or the degraded land. Okay, so how to restore them? A fund and a strategy was created. Now, before this, the strategy was from 2008 to 2018. So a new strategy was created for 2018 to 2030 and a fund was also created. This is very important. Then another important thing for us is 2019 summit, which took place in Delhi. and it gave Delhi Declaration. Here parties expressed commitment for other related issues like health, gender rights, etc., human rights, health, gender rights, etc. So these were also included in this. All right, so these two summits are important for us. India committed restoration of 26 million hectares degraded land by 2030. So in case of India, it committed that we will bring 26 million hectares of land under forest again, which has been deserted or degraded. Okay. So this more or less is about UNCCD. Now let us move ahead. Let us look at other topic of forest principles. Okay. So forest principles is again voluntary and non-binding in nature for sustainable management of forest. That how you can sustainably manage forest. This is important. It is suggested and a point is made that developed countries, please remember this, that it talks about developed countries, okay, not developing, developed countries will make an all out effort to green the world through restoration and forest conservation. So it focuses specially, it gives special emphasis on developed countries, that they should make an all out effort to conserve the forest. Okay, this is more or less about forest principles. Moving ahead, we have Rio Declaration on Earth and Development. Okay, so what was this declaration all about? This declaration is a guide for sustainable development in future, that how development should take place in future, because again and again there's a debate between environment and development. So there's a debate between environment and development. So to solve this, this was given. We have already seen this in Bertland Commission again, but this is a constant issue and this comes up every time, environment versus development. So every time something new occurs for solving this issue. And in this case, there was Rio Declaration on Earth and Development. All right. It formulated precautionary principle and polluter pay principle. So what are these principles? Precautionary principle says that you should be precautionary towards any new thing or any new technology. Until and unless that technology is considered as safe, we should not use it. We should have a proper trial and proper experimentation before introducing a technology. So we should always use precaution whenever we are introducing something new. And polluter pay principle is that those who pollute should pay. Those who pollute more should pay more. This is the polluter pay principle. So something like this, many principles were given in this summit. A total of 27 principles were written under this document. Okay, and some of these were precautionary polluter pay principles, something like this. Okay, these two are important, and you can remember that 27 principles were given. Okay, and it gave a guide for sustainable development. But again, this is not as such binding. It is a voluntary document. All right. And after this summit, what happened, that since we have talked about sustainable development and everything, so after this summit, a body was formed, that is Commission on Sustainable Development. And this was formed none other than by the United Nations General Assembly, UNGA, to follow up the Earth Summit. That what has been done in the Earth Summit, to follow it up, okay, how things will go ahead, UNGA was formed. UNGA formed the Commission on Sustainable Development. UNGA formed the Commission on Sustainable Development, that how things will go ahead. It was replaced by High Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development in 2013. And in 2013, it was replaced by another body, which is High Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development. Because now we were talking about SDGs also. Because from 2015, as you know, that SDGs came into picture. So sustainable development was getting more and more emphasis. So a new body was created and this was replaced. Okay, which meets both under UNGA every 4 years. This new body meets. Okay, this new body meets under UNGA every 4 years and the ECOSOC annually in July. Okay, so annually under the ECOSOC in July and every 4 years in UNGA. Please remember this. Okay, and this is a point, okay, just for our knowledge, that Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev created Green Cross International. Okay, so you can just remember this. This is just for our knowledge, that Soviet leader created this Green Cross International in 1992 Earth Summit, and its major focus was security, poverty, and environmental degradation to ensure sustainable and secure future. This was just created on the lines of Red Cross International. Just like there's a Red Cross International, a Green Cross International was created. So to take care of environment, sustainable development, and other issues such as security and poverty. Okay. And why this security and poverty? Let me just discuss it for a brief moment. Because what is happening is that due to environment, if environment is bad, say, so you will get sick. Okay, if environment is bad, then you will not be able to work properly. All right. So all this illness, all these work related issues are also related to environment in one way or other. Okay, this has been discussed in United Nations, and that is why when nowadays when we discuss about environment, we also discuss about other things such as poverty and human rights, because now environment such as clean air have become a issue of human rights. And that is why you will see whenever environment is discussed, these things are also discussed nowadays. All right, I hope this is clear to you why these are included. So moving ahead now, we have Rio plus 10. This happened in Johannesburg. This happened in 2002, the year 2002, and plus 10 because this happened after 10 years from 1992 summit. So plus 10 here. So this happened in 2002 and after 10 years. All right. So Johannesburg summit, this is known as Johannesburg summit, World Summit on Sustainable Development. Again, the focus is on sustainable development. All right. But nothing much came out of this. Okay. The meeting was not much success, no concrete protocol or convention, rather a more general statement on issues like health, good governance, poverty, technology were discussed. So this was the only thing which were discussed. Nothing concrete came out of it. Here again, you can see many topics, even though the meeting is more about environment and sustainable development, but you can see that health, good governance, all these things are also coming in, because now there has been a theory that environment is related to these things, because if there's no good governance, environment will suffer. A good governance is needed to protect environment. These are some of the theories. All right. So now moving ahead now, we have Rio plus 20. This again happened in Rio de Janeiro, and this happened in 2012, and that is why there's Rio plus 20. All right. So United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development of 2012, this is also known as, it is a non-binding document. Again, a non-binding document. Please remember this, which ones are binding, which ones are not binding. And this was published, and a document was named The Future We Want. Under this forum, it was decided that high-level political forum on sustainable development, which was formed in 1992 after the 1992 summit, was to be replaced by CSD Commission on Sustainable Development in 2013. Okay, so in 1992, this was formed after this summit, and after this summit, it was replaced. So after 2012 summit, it was replaced with CSD. So this is how you can remember it. Okay, so in Rio 1992, it was formed, and in Rio plus 20, it was replaced. All right. So I hope this is clear to you. It was also decided to finalize sustainable development goals by 2015. And this was one of the major reasons why sustainable development goals came about in 2015, which we see. This was one of the major reasons, this summit. All right. So now moving ahead, we have another thing that we should know, that it was also decided to hold third meetings of small islands development nation. Okay, these are very small islands, and they meet. Okay, they have their international meeting, and this meeting took place after this summit in 2014. All right, so it was decided for a third international meeting. Okay, so you can write better word would be third international meeting. Third international meeting, and this international meeting took place in 2014. Okay, third international meeting of small island developing state. All right. So while Rio Summit was culmination of past effort, on the other hand, Rio plus 20 debates were directed towards future. Okay, all the future debates were discussed, such as sustainable development goals, technology transfer, funds, how funds will come. So this was all discussed here, that how future will be. Rio discussed about past, and Rio plus 20 discussed about future. This you should know. Okay, in Rio plus 20, we had sustainable development goals, technology, funding, okay, green mechanism, how the carbon trading, etc. will take place. All this was discussed here. Please remember it. And another thing that I was telling you is that sustainable island developing states. So here, they are a group of developing countries which is distinctly recognized in UNFCCC. So they have been distinctly recognized in UNFCCC. We'll be studying about UNFCCC in detail. So 3 international meetings have took place. So first took place in 1994. These are the international conferences, though other conferences have also taken place, but international ones are 3. First international conference in 1994, second international conference in 2005. So these are, just remember, international conferences. And the last one which took place was in 2014 after this meeting. This meeting ended in 2012 and their meeting happened in 2014. Okay. So Rio plus 20 ended in 2012 and the International Conference of Small Island Developing States took place in 2014. I hope this is clear to you. So now moving ahead, we have Global Environment Facility. This is a very important topic that you should know. Now what this Global Environment Facility is all about. Now this is a facility which is created to fund various objectives to save the global environment. Okay, such as to reduce desertification, to reduce mercury pollution, okay, to reduce or to stop the threat to biodiversity. So these are some of the things in which it does. Also to reduce pollutants. So other things are there, we'll be seeing it. So this is a fund, a facility which has been created to reduce all these things. All right. So this has been created. Global Environment Facility is a multilateral environment fund that provides grants and blended finance for projects related to biodiversity, as I was saying, to preserve biodiversity, for climate change, tackling climate change, international waters, land degradation, and persistent organic pollutant. Now, what are these persistent organic pollutants? We'll be seeing. These are covered under the Stockholm Conference or the Stockholm Convention. I may say not conference, but the convention. Okay, so these are covered under Stockholm Convention. We'll be seeing mercury. We'll be seeing the convention for mercury also, which convention deals with the mercury. Okay, and sustainable forest management, food security, and sustainable cities in developing countries. This you should know that it is about developing countries. A very important thing. Okay, that forest principles was for developed countries. This one is for developing countries. Sometimes it may ask. So it is important that you should know which one is for which countries. All right. So it is the largest source of multilateral funding for biodiversity globally. It distributes more than $1 billion a year. Okay. So it distributes more than $1 billion a year. So now let us look at in more detail about the Global Environment Facility, what it is all about. It was established in 1991, but in 1992, it became a part of Rio Summit. So in 1992, it was accepted into the Rio Summit. Okay. Even though it is in 1991, but in many books and in many notes, you will see that it is talked with Rio Summit only. But it was established in 1991, but it became part of Rio and we study it with Rio only because it became its part in 1992. It was a fund established by 18 partner agencies such as UNEP, UNDP, World Bank, etc. So there were 18 multilateral agencies which established this fund to protect environment. Trustee is World Bank. Okay, World Bank is the trustee. It takes care of all the fund. And GEF has 184 countries, but all these 184 countries are not its board members. Okay, so there are 32 countries. It is represented by 32 countries in GEF Council. Okay, and how these 32 countries are selected? So out of these 32 countries, 16 are developing countries which are in GEF Council, 14 are developed countries, and 2 are economies in transition. 2 are economies in transition. This is how a board or a council of GEF is created. I hope this is clear. Now let us see in which areas do GEF provide funding. What are the core areas in which GEF does its work? So it is a financial mechanism for 5 conventions. We'll be seeing all these conventions in detail. But for now, you should know that what are the 5 conventions which GEF deals with. CBD, that is Convention for Biological Diversity. Then we have UNFCCC, United Nations Framework to Combat Climate Change. Then UNCCD, United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification. Stockholm Convention, this Stockholm Convention talks about persistent organic pollutants, POPs. We'll be seeing about this. It talks about persistent organic pollutants, POPs, and Minamata Convention on mercury, as I was saying. Okay, so this is the Minamata Convention for mercury. These are the 5 conventions for which GEF provides financial facilities or financial mechanisms. It covers 4 focal areas. So the areas are climate change, biodiversity, international waters, and ozone depletion. Okay, so it covers these 4 areas. Just remember this. This is very important. Please note this down. It is a very important thing. Both these areas, the 5 conventions and the 4 focal areas. This is more important. Okay, this is more important. this one here, that what are the 5 conventions. It is directly asked at times in examination, what are the 5 conventions and the 4 focal areas. All right. It provides EIT to implement the Montreal Protocol. Okay. So it provides fund to implement the Montreal Protocol. Again, very important. You should know. Okay. It is one of the funding agencies for Montreal Protocol, and Montreal Protocol is related to ozone depletion. This we'll be seeing in detail. All right. First assembly happened in 1988 and it was headed by India. The last assembly which happened was 6th assembly. This happened in Vietnam. Okay. The 7th assembly was to take place. The 7th assembly was to take place in 2022, somewhere in 2022, but this was delayed due to COVID-19, and it is expected that this will take place in 2023. It was delayed and it is now expected that it will take place in 2023, or it may take place in 2024 also, because till now the host has not been finalized. Okay. Currently 8th phase of replenishment cycle of GEF is going on. Now what is this replenishment cycle? So what happens is that, let me rub it a little bit here, so to make some space. Okay, what happens is that GEF has certain amounts of funds. Say GEF has certain amounts of funds. Okay, these are donated by various countries and various multilateral organizations. Now over the years, these funds get spent. So these funds are spent. Over the years, these funds are spent. All right. And when these funds are spent, they get exhausted. So a replenishment cycle is done so to get back these funds. Okay. Or to recharge this fund, you may say in a simple language, to recharge this fund or to bring back those funds, to get new funds. A replenishment cycle takes place. So currently the 8th phase of replenishment cycle is taking place as far as GEF is concerned. So new funds will be donated, new funds will be organized, and again they will be spent, and again a new replenishment cycle will take. So this is how GEF functions. Okay. Various agencies and the areas where each focuses on. This is more or less about GEF. I hope this is clear. So till now we have studied all this area we have studied here. Now in next lecture we'll be starting with the conventions, and at first we'll be looking on the Convention on Biological Diversity. This is a very important convention as far as our examinations are concerned, and after this we'll be looking at a very important one, that is United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC. Okay, so I hope this is clear to you. So in next lecture we'll be starting with the Convention on Biological Diversity, very important one. So a very thank you for this lecture.